Hey Met fans, Brian here at Mets Mayhem. The New York Mets and St. Louis Cardinals opened up their three-game series at Busch Stadium on Friday evening. The Mets came into this game with a 21-11 record, while the Cardinals were 14-18. Clay Holmes took the mound for the Mets, going up against the Cardinals' Sonny Gray. The Mets swept St. Louis in a four-game series at Citi Field back in mid-April. Sonny Gray is undefeated against the Mets with a 3-0 record. Meanwhile, the Mets have won the last 8 games against the Cardinals, dating back to April 28, 2024. Coming into this series, Wilson Contreras in his last 15 games is batting well over 300. Meanwhile, the Nolans, Arenado, and Gorman are both struggling, batting under the Mendoza line of 200. For the Mets, Pete Alonso has been on fire, and Francisco Lindor is not far behind. Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo, Mark Vientos are all starting to come on the last 2 weeks, with the averages at or around 300 during this time period. As always, I thank you for taking the time out of your day in advance to watch this video. If you want to support this channel, I would appreciate you liking the video and subscribing. But enough of that, let's get into Mets Cardinals Game 1, Busch Stadium. Clay Holmes going for win number 4, and the Mets looking to get back in the winning ways. Let's get into it. Francisco Lindor leading off the top of the first inning against Sonny Gray, and he jumps the first pitch he sees, a sinker middle away, and lines it into right field for a leadoff single. So that brings up Juan Soto. He falls behind 0-2 before grounding up the middle. Cardinals shortstop Mason Wynn fields it, steps the bag on second, fires over to Wilson Contreras at first, double play. So 2 outs now, Pete Alonso up. Gray gets ahead of him 1-2 and gets the benefit of a call on a sweeper down and away, just off the plate. Alonso strikes out looking, and that ends the inning. Lars Nootbaar leading off the bottom of the first inning against Clay Holmes. Nootbaar takes a first pitch strike, then he works the count to 2-2 before taking a changeup outside the other way into left field. Leadoff double for the Cardinals. That brings up Mason Wynn, runner in scoring position, no one out. Lars Nootbaar takes off, he steals third base. It's the first stolen base against Clay Holmes so far this season. So Wynn's up with a runner on third, he works the count to 2-2. Hits a ground ball in the hole at short. Lindor backhands it, fires to Alonso at first. Short hops him. Alonso picks the ball. Wynn's called out of first. Nootbaar scores. The Cardinals challenge the play that Alonso was able to stay on the bag. And after review, it was ruled that Alonso did not stay on the bag. Wynn is safe at first. He gets an infield single along with the RBI. So now the Cardinals have Wynn at first. No one out. They have the lead 1-0. Brendan Donovan coming up. Holmes goes to 2-2 against him. He works an inside with a slider, and he gets him to fly out to Jeff McNeil at center for the first out. So Nolan Arenado now up, 1 out. During the at-bat, Mason Wynn attempts to steal second base, but he's thrown out by Alvarez for the second out. So Arenado's now ahead of the count 2-1, but he pops up a slide in the bottom of the zone into foul territory. Francisco Alvarez gets under it, makes the play, and that ends the first inning. Brandon Nimmo leading off the top of the second inning, and he works the count full before drawing a leadoff walk. That brings up Jesse Winker, takes the first pitch ball, and then it takes a cutter the other way into left field for a base hit. Nimmo pulls into second base, so the Mets have runners on first and second, no one out. Mark Vientos up, he lines a 1-1 sweeper into left field. It's a base hit. Nimmo was unable to score. The bases are now loaded, no one out. Jeff McNeil up, and the count gets to 2-2. And he pulls a sweeper to Wilson Contreras at first base. He tosses over to Mason Wynn covering second. That forces out Mark Vientos at second. That's the first out. Brandon Nimmo scores on it. Jesse Winker advances to third. McNeil is safe at first on the fielder's choice. So an RBI for McNeil. And then we have Francisco Alvarez coming up. Runners at the corners, 1 out. He pulls a 1-1 sweeper at the bottom of the zone towards short. So Mason Wynn goes to his right, goes to a knee, backhands it. He turns and tosses to Nolan Gorman covering second. That forces McNeil out for the second out. But on the turn to try to throw to first, it's not in time. Alvarez beats it out. So Jesse Winker scores on that fielder's choice. 2 outs now, runner at first. Luis Angel Acuna up. Acuna works the count to 3-1 before drawing a walk. Alvarez advances to second. That brings up Francisco Lindor. Lindor works the count to 3-1. He draws a walk as well. Bases loaded for Juan Soto. Soto falls behind in the count 1-2 before taking a called strike 3 on a sinker down and away, just catching the strike zone for the third out. The Mets scored 2 to take a 2-0 lead, but that ends the top of the second inning. So Wilson Contreras leading off for the Cardinals, and he falls behind 1-2 strikes, and then he swings and misses at an 81-mile-an-hour sweeper at the bottom of the zone, striking out for the first out. That brings up Alec Burleson, and he works the count to 1-1. He hits a sweeper away, right off of Clay Holmes, base hit for him, infield hit. Nolan Gorman now up, runner on first, 1 out. He goes out to the first pitch he sees, and he lines a 93-mile-an-hour fastball to left, with Nimmo coming in and making the play. That's 2 outs. Pedro Pajes is now up, runner on first, 2 outs. Pajes takes the first pitch strike, and then he goes the other way in a sinker up and in, but he hits it right to Juan Soto on right, and that ends the second inning. Pete Alonso leading off the bottom of the third inning, and he works the count full against Sonny Gray before lining a 3-2 sinker up and away to right field. Leadoff base hit for Alonso. Brandon Nimmo now up. Pete Alonso leaves first too early. Gray steps off, fires to Mason Wynn at second, catches the ball, makes a tag on Alonso. That's the first out. So it must have been a hit and run, but Alonso took off a little bit too early, and he was out. Surprisingly, though, Alonso in his career is 17 for 20 on stolen bases. He's not exactly fast, but he picks the right time to go. So it's possible this was a steal, but if it was, he didn't pick the right moment to take off. So now we have Jesse Winker up, and Sonny Gray strikes him out on 3 pitches, getting him on a curveball down and out of the zone. 2 outs. Brings up Mark Vientos, who works the count to 2-2, but then he swings at a sweeper down and away, way off the plate, in the ground. Pedro Pajes fires over to Contreras at first to complete the strikeout, and that ends the top of the third. Victor Scott II leading off for the Cardinals, and he grounds a 1-0 sinker through the left side into left field for a leadoff single. That brings up Lars Nootbaar, who doubled in his first at-bat, but Holmes gets him to pull a 1-1 changeup on the outside corner to Luis Angel Acuna at second, tosses over to Alonso to get the out. So Victor Scott II is now on second base, 1 out. Mason Wynn up. Scott steals during the at-bat. He steals third base. Francisco Alvarez with an ill-advised throw. Scott already had the bag stolen. Attempts to throw him out. Wasn't going to get him out. Makes a bad throw. Francisco Lindor comes charging behind Vientos to back him up. He's unable to get a hold of it. The ball's on the edge of the outfield grass. Victor Scott is just too fast. He scores on it. So now Wynn lines a 1-1 sinker into left field for a base hit. So at least we can take solace in the fact that he would have scored anyway. Brendan Donovan's up, runner at first, and Donovan lines a mid-80 slider up the middle into center field. So the Cardinals have first and third, 1 out, with Nolan Arenado up. But like I said before this game started, he's been struggling, and he chases a 2-2 slider for the strikeout. 2 outs now. Wilson Contreras is up. He's been hot for the Cardinals. He lines the first pitch, past Vientos into left field, base hit. Mason Wynn scores. Brendan Donovan moves to second. That brings up Alec Burleson, and he as well jumps on the first pitch, but he flies out to McNeil in center field, and that ends the third inning. So Sonny Gray on the mound at the top of the fourth inning, and he gets the Mets 3 up, 3 down. He gets Jeff McNeil to fly out to Brendan Donovan in left for the first out. He gets Francisco Alvarez to swing over a 93-mile-an-hour sinker at the bottom of the zone to strike out for the second out. And then Luis Angel Acuna strikes out as well on a 2-2 sweeper down and away in the dirt. Catcher Pedro Pajes throws over to Contreras at first. That completes the out. So it's a pretty quick inning here for the Cardinals after they kind of got back in this game. Clay Holmes gets a 1-2-3 inning himself in the top of the fourth inning. He gets Nolan Gorman to pop up on a 1-1 cutter up and in to mark Vientos in foul territory. He gets catcher Pedro Pajes to ground a 2-1 sinker right to Mark Vientos at third. Fires across the diamond to Alonso to complete the out. And then Victor Scott II worked the count full before getting called out on strike 3 on a sinker at the top of the zone. So Francisco Lindor is leading off the top of the fifth inning for the Mets, and he works the count full against Sonny Gray, but he flies out to Scott II in center field for the first out. That brings up Juan Soto. He falls behind 0-2 quickly, fouls off a changeup before Gray comes back with a sweeper, and Soto absolutely blisters it. A line drive of 114 exit velocity, banging off the right field wall. Stand-up double for Soto. So Soto on second, in scoring position, 1 out for Pete Alonso. Gray gets ahead of Alonso 0-2 as well, but tries to get Alonso with a changeup, and Alonso crushes it. Straightaway center field, 2-run home run. Alonso's 8th home run of the season, gives the Mets a 4-3 lead now. Brandon Nimmo up, and he dumps a changeup away into left field for a single. So it looks like Brandon Nimmo is starting to come on. Jesse Winker's up next, and he hits a 1-2 fastball and grounds it up the middle center field for a base hit as well. Nimmo stopping at second. So some of the Met batters who have been really struggling early on in the season and were carried by Lindor and Alonso are now starting to come on. This is a really good sign. Hopefully they continue and we get more of a balanced attack going forward. So the Cardinals are now forced to go to their bullpen. They bring on Chris Roycroft, and he comes on in relief of Sonny Gray to face Mark Vientos. He gets ahead of Vientos 1-2. Vientos hits a sinker to Nolan Gorman at second, who tosses to Mason Wynn covering second to force out Winker. Fires over to Contreras at first to double Vientos up, except Contreras dropped it. Nimmo, who pulled into third base, notices it. He takes off for home. Contreras kind of hung his head for a split second, but by the time he recovered and threw home, Nimmo already slid into home with the Mets' 5th run. That brings up Jeff McNeil. 2 outs. Vientos at first. McNeil lines a 1-0 fastball into left center field for a base hit. Vientos moves to second. So the Mets have first and second, 2 outs. Francisco Alvarez up, and Alvarez takes a 1-1 sinker up and in and shoots it the other way into right field. Drives in Vientos. McNeil advances to third base. RBI for Alvarez. So now it is 6-3 Mets. Runners are still at the corners, 2 outs. Luis Angel Acuña's up. Acuña falls behind, no balls, 2 strikes. And he grounds a cutter to Nolan Arenado at third, who fires over Nolan Gorman covering second base for the force out, and that ends the inning. So Clay Holmes takes the mound in the bottom of the 5th inning. He has a 6-3 lead, and he gets another 1-2-3 inning. He gets Lars Nootbaar to ground out to Alonso for the first out. Mason Wynn grounds out to Mark Vientos at third, fires over to Alonso, 2 outs. And then he gets Donovan to line out into McNeil in center, and that ends the 5th inning. So the Cardinals go to their bullpen again. John King comes on to replace Chris Roycroft. Leadoff batter for the Mets is Francisco Lindor, and Lindor hits a 1-1 sinker back to the box. John King fields it, tosses it over to first base, and that's the first out. Juan Soto is up next. He falls behind, no balls, 2 strikes versus King, but he lines a changeup up the middle into center field. Base hit. Pete Alonso up, Soto at first, 1 out. King gets Alonso to hit a 1-2 sinker to Nolan Gorman at second, who forces Soto out at second, fires over to Contreras at first, and the Cardinals get a 4-4-3 double play to end the top of the 6th inning. So Clay Holmes pitching into the 6th inning. Tyrone Taylor comes on as a defensive replacement for McNeil in center field. And Nolan Arenado leading off for the Cardinals. And he lines a 1-1 sinker right to Luis Angel Acuña at second for the first out. That brings up Wilson Contreras. And he singles on a soft line drive to second base. So Alec Burleson up, runner at first, 1 out. And he hits a 2-1 slider at the bottom of the strike zone, pulls it right to Alonso at first, who fires over to Lindor covering second, forcing out Contreras for the second out. 2 outs. Nolan Gorman up. He falls behind 0-2 before lining a cutter at the top of the strike zone, right to Tyrone Taylor in center for the third out. So John King's still in the game for the Cardinals. He's in there to face Brandon Nimmo, who's leading off for the Mets in the top of the 7th inning. And Nimmo swings at the first pitch he sees, a 91-mile-an-hour sinker, middle in, and he hits a deep fly ball to center field over the fence. Home run Brandon Nimmo, number 7 on the season. The Mets lead is now 7-3. That brings up Jesse Winker, but Mendoza decides to send up Sterling Marte instead. So the Cardinals go to their bullpen. They bring on Roddery Muñez, and Muñez gets Marte to line out to Nolan Gorman at second for the first out. Mark Vientos then strikes out, chasing 3 pitches down out of the strike zone for the second out. And that brings up Tyrone Taylor, and he works to count to 2 balls, 2 strikes but he lines an 89-mile-an-hour slider to left field for a double. So Taylor on second, 2 outs. Francisco Alvarez now up, and Alvarez waits on a 98-mile-an-hour sinker, and he takes it the other way, shoots it into right field. That drives home Taylor. This is now an 8-3 game. Another RBI for Alvarez, another opposite field hit for Alvarez. You love to see it. Luis Angel Acuna up. He falls behind 0-2, chasing 2 balls down out of the strike zone. But Munoz leads the slider up. Acuna lines that to right field for a double. So Alvarez gets to third base. Second and third, 2 outs. Francisco Lindor up. Munoz works Lindor away most of the at-bat. Then he comes back for 2-2 down and in slider in the dirt. Lindor swings, strikes out, and that ends the top of the 7th inning. So Clay Holmes managed to get through 6 innings and is aligned to pick up this win if the Mets bullpen can hold it. Jose Butto comes on in relief in the bottom of the 7th inning. He faces Pedro Pages leading off and strikes him out on a 1-2 slider down and away, gets him to chase for the first out. Victor Scott the second, now up. He works the count full, but Butto locates a fastball at the bottom of the zone, gets him to ground out to Alonso, tosses to Butto covering first, 2 outs. And then Lars Nootbaar lines out to Brandon Nimmo for the third out, ending the 7th inning, 1-2-3. Munoz still on the mound for the Cardinals, and he faces Juan Soto leading off the top of the 8th inning, and Soto flies out to center field for the first out. Now that brings up Pete Alonso, and Munoz gets Alonso swinging a 2-2 slider down the zone. He grounds out to Nolan Arenado at third, fires over to Wilson Contreras. That's the second out. And then Brandon Nimmo's up next, and he works the count full before drawing a walk, his second walk of the game. Sterling Marte up, his second at bat of the game, and he flies out to Lars Nootbaar in right field, and that ends the top of the 8th inning. So after a 1-2-3 bottom of the 7th inning, Jose Butto is still on the mound to pitch the bottom of the 8th. Leadoff batter Mason Wynn, though doubles on a line drive to left field. Butto then walks Brandon Donovan on 4 pitches. So now he's a little bit in trouble. Runners on first and second for the Cardinals. No one out. But he's able to get out of it. He gets Nolan Arenado to ground a 1-1 sinker to Lindor at short. Tosses to Acuna, who then fires to Alonso. The Mets turn the 6-4-3 double play. Mason Wynn advances to third base in the play, but the Cardinals now have 2 outs. Brings up Wilson Contreras. He falls behind Butto quickly. No balls, 2 strikes. And then Butto works him down and in and gets him to hit an 86-mile-an-hour sinker right to Lindor at short, fires to Alonso, and that ends the 8th inning. So in the top of the 9th inning, the Cardinals go to their closer, Ryan Helsley, to get him some work. He faces Mark Vientos leading off for the Mets, and Vientos hits a hard ground ball, but right to Mason Wynn at short, who fires over to Contreras, and that's 1 out. Tyrone Taylor's up. He works the count to 2-2, but Helsley goes up and drills him. So now Taylor's on first, 1 out, brings up Francisco Alvarez. Alvarez gets ahead of the count, 2-0. Something we're not used to seeing with him, at least for me it's not. It feels like he's always behind in the count. He laid off a 2 pitches low out of the strike zone, gets ahead 2-0. Then he gets a 96-mile-an-hour fastball inside, lines it to left field for a base hit. So with 2 outs, Taylor running on contact, he makes it to third base. So runners are at the corners, 2 outs, Luis Angel Acuna up. He jumps on the first pitch he sees, he flies out to right field. Taylor tags and scores. Sac fly for Acuna, productive out. Mets now lead 9-3. Lindor up again. Alvarez on first, 2 outs, but Helsley gets Lindor to ground out to Nolan Gorman at second for the third out. So bottom of the 9th, the Mets have a 9-3 lead. Ryan Stanek comes on in relief of Butto, and I absolutely love this move. Stanek has had 3 poor outings in a row. Get him in there in a non- or low-pressure situation. Let him get some success, rebuild his confidence. This is the perfect opportunity for that, and Stanek gets the Cardinals out in order. He gets Burleson to fly out to Taylor in center for the first out. He strikes out Nolan Gorman, getting him to swing over a 90-mile-an-hour splitter for the second out. And Pedro Pages grounds out to Lindor, firing over to Alonso, and that ends the game. So the Mets win. Final score is Mets 9, Cardinals 3. Mets end the 2-game losing streak, get back in the win column, take game 1 of the 3-game series versus the Cardinals. Lots of positives in this game to talk about. let's get into it and the takeaways. So the Mets mayhem player of the game is Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo went 3 for 3. He had 2 walks, scored 3 runs, drove in a run, hit his 7th home run of the season. Nimmo's starting to come around. His average is now up to 229. Another Met who's starting to come around is Jesse Winker. He went 2 for 3, scored a run. He brought his average up to 239. Now these averages aren't great, but when they were sub 200 up until recently, it's progress and a good sign that they're starting to come out of it. I feel like you can't go more than the game without mentioning the NL Player of the Month of April, Pete Alonso. He went 2 for 5, scored a run, drove in 2 runs on his 8th home run of the season. Alonso is now up to 345 in the season. Juan Soto went 2 for 5 as well and scored a run. Don't look now, Soto's average is up to 258. Francisco Alvarez went 3 for 5. He had 3 RBIs. He went the other way twice, which is great to see him using the whole field. And he threw out Mason Wynn trying to steal in the first. Clay Holmes went 6 innings, and early on didn't look like he would make it, maybe through 4. But he settled down, had some quick innings, allowed him to get through 6. So his stat line is 6 innings. He allowed 3 runs on 8 hits. It's the most he's given up so far in a game. But he walked none, and he struck out 3. He picks up his 4th win of the season. He's now 4-1 with a 2.95 ERA. Jose Butto came on to pitch in relief. He pitched a scoreless 7th and 8th inning. And then Ryan Stanek got a quick 1-2-3 ninth, bouncing back from his prior 3 bad appearances. This was a fun game to watch. The Mets got contributions all up and down the lineup. It shows how dangerous this lineup can truly be. The Mets and Cardinals will play Game 2 of the 3-game series, Saturday, 2:15 p.m. Eastern start time. Tyler McGill on the mound for the Mets. He's 3-2, a 1.74 ERA. He's going up against Eric Fetty, who's 1-3 with a 4.68 ERA. I'll be back to recap the game, as well as provide any other noteworthy Mets news. But until then, Mets fans, let's go Mets.